Hello Internet, welcome back to our asteroid belt thing. I still haven't figured out what exactly we're going to call it. It's just an asteroid belt. So, you may notice from the last video when we had that line of asteroids, I've made some progress. I had recorded a video, but then my recording software crashed and everything got lost. So, we're picking up here. So what I've done, I suppose I should probably catch you up. Is I have made a create and a destroy distance. So if we actually back up here, what you'll see is we have sort of this circle, I guess, of asteroids. And so they're created around the outer ring, or they're created actually a little bit inside, and then they get a random velocity and there's some noise applied to that. And then if they get too far outside, they get destroyed, so you can see some of them floating out there. And I also have trimmed it so it squishes. It's actually a random sphere, but then I squish it down. And that is just so that we get sort of this ring shape instead of some like torus or something weird. So this is all centered around the camera, which I have lost. It's very big. It is about 1,000 meters in radius, which is a lot. So it's about 2,000 meters across, which is actually double your normal view distance. I've upped that. So this is what we get with one. I can actually add a few more of these, and it actually still runs relatively well and looks better. So each of the asteroids, there's actually 1,000 of them, and each of them, when they're created, get a specific speed and a rotation and a few other things. All of that is maintained, so as they wrap around, the only thing that's refreshed is their position. Everything else stays the same. There's also a scaling out animation, which might be hard to see, but you can actually probably see with this one. As it gets further away, it gets a little bit smaller. It's all distance based. And so the idea there is that way you don't see any of those jarring appearances. It just kind of looks like it fades in. It'll just fade in a little bit faster. So that happens at the create and the destroy. We will get to how that looks in actual scripts later. But just to kind of catch everybody up, this is where we're at. What we're going to be doing, probably should have mentioned that first. We are going to be making it so that when they get close enough to you, when they get close enough to the player, we're actually going to be replacing all of this with real actual objects. So if I stop this actually and go back here, I have a single asteroid, and this one actually has a rigid body attached to it, so it'll be actually physically simulated. So the idea is, if it gets within a certain radius, we want to instantiate one of these and then move it out. And then when it gets out of that radius again, we want to replace it with the old instanced version. So the difference here is this one is actually going to hit things. It's actually going to bounce off of things. And it's going to do all normal physics stuff. This is going to be your actual game object. Everything outside of that is just a LOD. It's just detail. So I haven't figured out how to do this yet, but I imagine we're going to have to edit this. So there were two things I was considering, because we could have taken this two ways. The first was to create like a pooling mechanism and then do this, or do this and then create a pooling mechanism. So we're going to do this, and then in the next video we will do pooling. And so the reason you do pooling is because it prevents you from having to instantiate a bunch of objects. So this solution we're putting together now is not going to be optimal. There's going to be pretty significant overhead for it, because we're going to be creating a number of objects and we're going to actually be instantiating them a lot. So there may be some spikes and it may not run really well. Hopefully we can fix that over time. So this is some of the really janky math. I'm going to go back and fix this on my own time, because this was just kind of trying to get it. There's like random modifiers based on like cosines and things like that. It's gross. Don't do that. It's all just seeing what I can get out of all this. What we need is two new variables. We're going to create a LOD create distance. So this will be the distance where it actually creates the physical model or the physical object. And then the LOD destroy distance. I'll set that to like 150. So just like our other distances, our create has to be less than our destroy, or we might get into some weird loop where it keeps instantiating them. And that should be good. The only other thing I'm going to do is jump to this asteroid data. And what we're going to do is if it has a game object, we'll say if that game object, it'll just be physical body. Yeah, that works. So if this is not null, then that object actually exists in the scene. So we're just going to track that object. We're not going to update any of this stuff. So I don't know if that's the best way to do this. We'll have to see. I'll have to probably run some performance tests and things to make sure everything's as it should be. But for the most part, what we need to do is if our asteroid physical body is not equal to null. So if it doesn't exist, then we do all of that stuff, which is gross. We'll probably want to pull this out into a function or something. We can do that, or I can do that rather, later. We have our asteroid physical body. If it is not null, then we don't do anything. The only thing we need to check now is we need to get the difference. So this difference still needs to be calculated. So if our distance, we can't take our asteroid position anymore. We're gonna have to actually use our physical body dot transform dot position. So that will get us the difference between our player. No, that'll get us the difference between our asteroid belt and that. That's not what we want. Is it? I believe for now we were just using the camera main, which also isn't great. A lot of this stuff is gonna have to be fixed later, which I'm kind of digging a hole, and we'll dig ourselves out later. But this is we're proving out a concept here and trying to get it working, and then we can figure out, once we know it works, we can figure out what we want to actually keep and what we don't. And so right now we're kind of throwing things at it, and the parts that we like we can keep, and the parts that don't we can throw out. So this is just really fast and trying to iterate over things pretty quickly. So this is just the difference between those two. So the magnitude of that vector is going to get us the actual length between the two. And so what we need to do is if the difference dot magnitude is greater than our LOD destroy distance, then we want to destroy our asteroid dot physical body, and we want to set it to null. So all this does is it completely deletes that reference, and then for our asteroid we just set it to null so that it now is all simulated like this. This won't work for a few reasons. We actually need to update a few other things too. So let's do that. We need to update our angular velocity. So that is going to be based off of our rigid body. So we're going to need to get that. We could have just stored the rigid body. We don't need any of the actual game object stuff. But we're going to stick with game objects because our pooling script is going to handle game objects. So let's do that later. But for now, we've got our position. That can just be super easy. Asteroid.physicalbody.transform.position. And so all we're doing is copying the data from our normal mesh into our instanced variable, and so that way it's persisted and it will stick around a little bit longer. So we just need to pull everything in. So I'm just pulling in the position, the scale, and the rotation, and this way you shouldn't notice the transition. As long as we do it right, that's the idea. And so now we need that angular velocity. Actually, we're just gonna need a reference to the rigid body because there's a few things we need. So I'm gonna pull out the rigid body. So we're gonna grab the asteroid physical body, and we're gonna get a component off of that, call it our rigid body. Sure. And then we need to set our speed. So this will be the speed of the asteroid. And we want to set it equal to our rigid body's speed. The velocity dot magnitude. Sure. So I don't know if we have a direction. I think it's all being derived from all of this stuff. So that may look a bit funky. But we can work around that-ish. I don't think we can work around that. We'll get to that when we get to it. So that will be a to-do. But then we can just pull in our angular velocity here. And so all this should do is map everything back to it and then destroy it and null it out. And then we should go right back to rendering this. So what we need to do is we're grabbing our difference here. With that difference, we need to do a test on the magnitude. If the magnitude is less than the create distance, or the LOD create distance rather, then we want to do not that. We want to actually create our object. If we're not within the create distance, then we just ignore this. So to create it, we just need to instantiate a new object. We have our asteroid. Did I not create a prefab? We'll create one now. Yeah, I didn't. Okay. So we need a game object that can just hold the object we actually want to create. Call it a prefab, because why not? Then let's pull in our position and our rotation. We also are going to want a few other things. So we'll store our asteroid here, like that. That's not going to work. We'll just call it our game object. Sure. And then with that, we should be able to set its local scale equal to the asteroid's scale. And that just matches the scale because there is some scaling to the asteroids. We do it down here. Theoretically, it won't be a factor, but if we factor in like randomly sized ones, so if we had like a little noise to the size of them, this way it will stay consistent and it won't all get out of whack. So we're just trying to keep things as close as they can be. We're also going to want to grab our rigid body again, like so. And then what we're going to want to do is grab, actually we're going to want to calculate our speed first. So we calculate a bunch of stuff. We calculate like the heading, and that's just figuring out where along the outside of the ring it's going, the speed along that. So this whole function, it's calculating the actual speed of our object. I think we want that up there because we can actually use this. So I'm going to keep the position changing, but everything else, I'm gonna create something new for that. So I'm gonna create a vector 3. We're gonna call it our velocity. Sure. So we're creating a velocity. It's equal to our heading times a bunch of that stuff. We're gonna need our angle as well. So I can pull all of this stuff out. And then the position eventually is just going to be plus equals the velocity times the time. Like that. So we can take all of these multiplications out of there then. So hopefully that's a little bit less painful to do. And then this just gets us the actual change in our velocity, which we can then apply to our rigid body here. So we can do that and set the velocity. So the velocity will equal our velocity. Yeah, there we go. And then we also need to set the angular velocity equal to our asteroid angular velocity. So right now, all of the asteroids just have a constant velocity or a constant angular velocity. Doesn't change. It's just at runtime or when they're all created, it's just randomized. And then this way it'll actually change a little bit, but we'll have to see. So that initializes the entire thing. It creates it, does all of that. We need to actually set the physical body to the game object. And the last thing I'm going to do, just so this stays neat, I'm going to parent this to ourselves. So to whatever this is, to our asteroid instance renderer. And that way it just all, at least in the scene, it will all stay together. And if we ever move it or anything like that, it will all stay relatively close. So we need our 7396 asteroid. That name is not anything special. It's just the name of the mesh group that this one happened to come from. So I'm using an asteroid pack for this. Still waiting. Well, actually, still waiting to implement the asteroids from my Asteroid VR game. Those will be coming shortly, and then we can actually get those in, swap these out, and then hopefully we can open source this entire project. But until that happens, all of these are asset store assets, so I can't share them. So that should be good. There's our asteroid. It's all fine. I should be able to create this, and we should get something. That was definitely something. Okay. Well, I don't know what we did, but we did it well. Alright, I'll be right back. I need to restart Unity. Alright. I have no idea what happened. It looked like we instantiated a bunch of things and then they all got out of hand. But I didn't see any objects, so I got really confused. So we're going to try that again, and hopefully it's not going to break. I'm going to save this time. And then we'll figure out what's going on, I think. Pause it. No, I have no idea what's going on. Those are all still our instance values. So I think I'm doing something horribly wrong. But I don't know what it is, so this is annoying. So we set our object there. We do all of our rotation, position, all of that fun stuff. Let's attach here. This is going to be where we're actually calculating everything. So if we hit this code, we know we actually tried to create an asset or instance or whatever. If we don't, then shoot. Nope. Okay, we did hit it. Yeah, I have no idea I don't know what's causing this. Why this would be so significantly different. Let's just walk through this. I think we'll get our rigid body. I should be able to get our... Oh. That might be it. It's traveling at 6,000 meters per second. Which is a bit fast. Why is it traveling that fast? That seems excessive. Okay, so the velocities are absurd. So I imagine what's happening is it is creating and immediately destroying them. But why? That's a good question. I don't know. Ooh. Let me just throw in a time multiplication in here. This shouldn't be the issue. But just to ensure I am not going entirely crazy. No, it's still way too fast. And you can see it like stuttering, so something funky is going on. And it seems to only to be centered all around the center. So I wonder if it's not properly detecting our main camera. So maybe that little hack we did was a bad idea. Let's give it an actual transform. So we'll give it our render origin. That probably isn't the worst name I could give it. So we'll start from there and see where we get. So I'm going to replace all of the camera things with this, and then we'll see what that fixes, if it fixes anything. Because I am so confused. Alright, I think I got them all, so let's jump back here. We're going to need to actually set this up now. So we should just be able to attach it to our main camera. It should all work. I should be able to do this. And then everything should go really fast, and then it gets broke. And we still have asteroids, but they're at the center of our planet, which isn't what we want. And they're going super fast, which also isn't what we want. Why are they going so fast? And why are they over there? I'm going to take off this. That doesn't make any sense. I shouldn't need to do that. I don't want to do that. We're going to do it anyway, just to sanity check, and then I'm going to put it back immediately. Yeah, okay, good. Because that was weird, and I was concerned. I'm missing something. Something obvious. It has to be obvious. This is always an obvious issue. Oh, maybe that's it. So we have all of those we were adding to the position. That was wrong. We were just multiplying those, which would actually explain why we were getting those like weird waves, because we were actually applying a wave to their position. That makes more sense. Cool, it makes sense now. I understand things. We're not getting any instantiations at all though, which is frankly just wrong. But it's better than where we were. So I'm going to modify a few things. Don't know what yet. First off, we need to take this out, because that's wrong. We have the time multiplication down below, right here. So when we were doing it twice, it was throwing everything out of whack. Things are moving too slowly. Now, things should be back to their normal cheery, quick pace. We're not getting any asteroid instantiation, though, which I don't understand. So let's drop a breakpoint inside of that. We'll see if we get any fun behavior. Sorry this isn't going smoothly. It never seems to. Maybe that's just because I don't actually know what I'm doing, but part of it I think is just the way this whole thing is structured. I try not to get too far ahead or like try to solve the problem before I start recording these, because I think you guys learn something when I totally screw things up. I don't know if it's the most entertaining thing, but usually the problem solving thing is sort of what programming is all about. So I try to capture that. Sometimes I capture too much, like here. But for the most part, I try to keep it balanced. This isn't going well though. Not well at all. Why? Why? Is our create distance is at 100. LOD create, less than the LOD create. If our magnitude is greater than the destroy, it won't be immediately. So that's correct. So we take our asteroid position oh. Well, that was never gonna work. Found the issue. We're taking the difference here between our asteroid position and our center, which is going to be the difference between here and the center of our object, which is the center of our planet. That's not what we want. That's not what we want at all. Difference from player. That's better. That will get us what we need. So if we bring in the difference from the player, it's gonna look like that. We can bring that down here, use that for our magnitude calculation, and down here. So now it should work. Now we should get actual physical asteroids. They should hit people. They should do all sorts of cool stuff. It should not compile, and everything will look silly. What did I break? Oh, that's not gonna work, is it? Can we take... Okay, so this has to actually be... It can't happen there. We have to do it twice, unfortunately. So this can be between the physical body because it's updated here. Up here, we don't have that, so we actually have to just use the position, which we may need to tweak that in the design. Maybe we always sync the position, for example. That would solve this. But for now, we're just going to have it in two places from two different calculations. That makes sense. Yes, I wanted you to just stop. That was exactly what I wanted. Oh, I bet I know what happened. Those are the ones that were already inside. So, there's our camera. Why are these ones now? Ooh. Okay. Uh, Unity doesn't seem to like this solution very much. At all, actually. I'm not sure why it wouldn't particularly be fond of this. We're not at this point. We're not really instantiating that many objects, and they're not too far away from the camera either. So I don't know why it would be throwing a fit. But if at first you don't succeed, make it bigger. This is a really bad idea, because if the earlier one was crashing, this one is definitely going to crash. So now we have 5,000 asteroids all physically simulated. When they get close, they will become physical bodies, and then Unity will crash. But it works. I don't know what that whole crash thing is about. I think it might be because we're instantiating things. But that also doesn't really make sense to me. A lot of Unity's crashes don't really make sense to me. So yeah, I think we can leave it here. I don't really want to, because it obviously doesn't work great. Things are crashing, and you noticed when we brought it up to 5,000. Oh my god, my hair is going crazy. When we brought it up to 5,000, it was not working. Or it was working, but it was slow, and we don't want that. So it's weird that there's two. Anyway, so what we want to do is make something a little bit less broken. So the idea is we're gonna stick a pool behind this, and we're gonna instantiate like a random guess, maybe 50, 100 asteroids, and have those just standing by. So when those are inside, we can just enable them and then swap them in and update their position and all of that, instead of actually creating a new one. So this will avoid just thrashing our garbage collection, because when we have a lot of these, our garbage collector is going to have to pick up all of those old instances, and it's going to have to allocate memory for the new ones, and it's gross. So we're going to look into fixing that in the next video. There's a bunch, if you're interested in pooling now, before the video gets out, there's a bunch of really cool, really simple tutorials for it. Unity has one, kind of, it's all right. And there's a few other ones. It's not too hard to find. Pretty much everybody uses it, especially if you're doing like a bullet hell or something like that. So we'll do that next. But for now, I think this is it. We've got, it works, but it doesn't work. So I'm happy enough with it, but we need to figure out what's causing the crash. I'll look into that. I'm not gonna do it now. If there's anything you guys want to see, let me know. I'd love to hear it. If there's anything you want me to change, want me to do differently, let me know about that as well. I'm always open. So yeah, until next time, see you, internet.